잉글리시 그루에 오신 걸 환영합니다. 저의 이름은 은혜입니다. 오늘은 실수와 오해 중에서 소개해 드릴게요. 질문 있으시면 텍스트.도련이 잉글리시 그루.us로 문의 바랍니다.
Okay.
Hi.
Hi, yeah.
Okay, so we're gonna discuss about the second episode.
Okay.
Yeah. So how have you been?
I've been good.
Hey, wait a minute. What's the second episode about? Let them know.
The second episode is about what is it about?
And misconceptions.
Myths and misconceptions,
Of
ladies
what?
and gentlemen.
Of interview.
Oh, thank
Job
you.
interview.
Oh, great! Right, that was great. Excellent. By the way, we're wearing the same clothes as last week because we have no money.
No budget. No budget.
budget. Okay. No budget and no money. Okay.
So what are the most common methods and misconceptions related to the job interview in English?
Well, what are they? Well, this pertains to a lot of people out there in Korea, which I've seen, and one of the things that you don't want to do when you're preparing for an English interview or any kind of interview, actually, is to take the exam mentality. In other words, you treat the interview as a test or an exam. The reason for that is because a lot of these people I've seen is that since they're not too confident about their English speaking ability, they try to memorize standardized answers, right? And that's probably not a very good idea because obviously. And another mistake that they make is they take the question that the interviewer asks them too literally, right? For instance, I'll give you an example. One of the most common questions in an English interview would be, well, Mr. Whatever, why don't you tell us about yourself, right? So when somebody asks that question, what you don't want to do is, start talking about when you were born, which elementary school you went to, who was your high school teacher, blah, blah, blah. These people are very busy, the people who are asking you these questions, so you really want to get to the point. So even if they ask you a general question like, well, tell us about yourself, you really want to start with, basically, I'll say it again, the sales points. Remember the sales points I mentioned last time? You want to talk about your sales points. You want to start marketing yourself. You want to talk about why this guy should hire you immediately. Okay, so don't talk about you were born in Changcheong and your mom had this tteokbokki or whatever. Don't talk about it. Just get to the point quickly. Okay.
Personally, most people who take the job interview in English are afraid of speaking just like English.
Right. Right.
That's kind of basic points.
Right.
That
I can understand that. I can really understand that. But at the end of the day, if you memorize standard questions, there are basically two big problems about that. Number one is you look rehearsed. Okay. It looks unnatural that you've actually memorized something and you're trying to repeat whatever is in your head without really understand what you're saying. Okay? And number two is that you can't prepare for all contingencies. Okay, they can ask you a million types of questions, and I don't care how smart you are. It is impossible for you to memorize a standardized answer for all these questions. So if they ask you a question that you didn't prepare for, you're going to panic, and you're not going to be able to answer that correctly. So on the memorizing, okay, don't memorize standard questions.
So what other serious myths and misconceptions are there?
One last point I think is important. It's something that, going back to what you mentioned, people are afraid of speaking English, and again I can understand that because it's a foreign language and it's uncomfortable. But I just want to say English isn't everything. Okay, a lot of people I've met say that in order to get a job at a foreign company, you have to speak English like a foreigner. You have to speak English like a native speaker. That is not true. Okay, that is not true. Of course, your English has to be, understandable, but as long as you have a very good attitude, right, and your English is fairly good, let's put it that way. And again, if your attitude is good, you will get the job. Okay, so English isn't everything.
Yeah.
It's a lot, but it's not everything.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
All right. So that's, I think, what we wanted to talk about today.
How about the multinational mentality?
Oh, okay. Well, okay. So about the multinational mentality, going back to one of the myths and misconceptions is that a lot of people think that a foreign company is a foreign company, right? So there's this huge mentality where when you're interviewing for, let's say, 현대중공업, and you're interviewing for IBM, it'll be obviously different. But people think that when they interview for, let's say, IBM or Hewlett Packard, for instance, they can take on the same approach. It's actually not that way. Every company is unique, right? IBM would be, old school electronics, and Hewlett Packard in Silicon Valley. So you really have to take a different approach. And even regionally, my background is in banking, and from my experience, I've noticed that basically U.S. banks are similar, right? And then European banks are similar, and then Asian, financial companies are similar. So you sort of have to do your 숙제, right? And sort of understand what the subtleties are between sort of like the regional blocks. And I guess that's a very good point that producer June came up with. Thank you very much, sir. All right.
Okay.
So we'll see you next week, and I hope we'll be wearing different clothes.
Say bye.
Bye.
I love this.
시청해주셔서 감사합니다. 보고 싶은 거나 질문하실 거 있으시면 우리 메일로 보내주시고요. 지금까지 은혜였습니다. 다음에 봬요. 네, 대해서 소개해드릴게요. 궁금한 거 있으시면 이벤트 고객님, 나 있어.
Okay, wait. It's okay.